Welcome back to Motors and Munitions. This is Jay, and today I wanted to make a really quick video about the P320 and whether or not it's drop safe or not, and what that means for you as a P320 owner or maybe a prospective owner. So first things first, give you a quick history. Essentially, some time ago there were conversations and rumors about the P320 not being drop safe. In response to that, in my opinion, the SIG kind of came out and said, no, it is drop safe. It's been tested and it's been proved safe, even by California standards. And kudos to Omaha Outdoors for saying, you know what, that's not good enough. Okay, we're going to do our own test, and so they did. They got a few different P320. Varying sizes, and then also I believe just the one X5, which is the the flared mag well, flat A trigger, Romeo sight plate. At least I don't think they all come with the Romeo, but maybe they do. I could be mistaken. And they did their own test, and what it proved was that if you drop it a very specific way, it will go off. It will fire unintentionally in a very repeatable manner. So the vast majority of the time when it's dropped in this way, it will go off. So we'll see what happens. I believe that SIG has stated that Monday, which will be August 14th, they should have a fix coming out. We'll see what that's going to be. But I wanted to touch on a couple of things when it comes to drop testing. So, and I'm going to be using California's legislation on the drop test, being that's probably the strictest. So basically, the biggest things to touch on are how it can be dropped, from what distance, right? Which is basically 39.8 inches. The way that it's written in the law is a little odd. It's 39.4 plus 0.4 minus 0 inches. And it doesn't really describe, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure if that means it's 39.4, could be as much as 39.8, but could not be any less than 39.4, or if it means it's 39.8 inches. I don't know. Take it for what, take it as you want, but essentially we're splitting hairs between 39 and 40 inches, we'll say, right? That gives you an idea what it is. And it has to be dropped onto a concrete slab that's 3 inches thick by 6 inches by 6 inches square. And that when it's dropped, it must come to rest without interference on or near the required slab, that 3 by 6 by 6. And that slab must be resting on a firm surface. Okay? And it must be dropped from the fixture in the 6 different ways that Penal Code S12128 describe. And the ammo, my understanding, is supposed to be a casing with a primer, no powder or projectile. And the way that they're very clear on exactly how it needs to be dropped. It'll need to be dropped in the normal firing position, such as this, with the barrel horizontal and grip down, upside down with the barrel horizontal grip up, on the grip with the barrel vertical, like this, on the muzzle with the barrel vertical, and on either side with the barrel horizontal. Afterwards, even if the gun does not go off, the primer shall be examined to make sure that the firing pin did not come in contact with it. And they'll do that every time they do a drop. And if there is, they'll use a new primer if there's any marks on it at all, or a new casing with a new primer if there's any marks at all. So that's what the drop test is. And basically, Omaha Outdoors tested it, and they tested it for this. which is a little bit different than that, I'll give them, but it's very specific. And when it's dropped, what happens is the inertia of the gun hitting or falling, when it smacks, the inertia allows the trigger to move rearward. Forces that trigger rearward far enough to discharge the weapon. So, that means there's nothing going wrong in here. There's nothing wrong in the fire control group. It's not the firing pin falling off the sear and shooting forward, hit the primer. You don't have, that's not the issue. The issue is one of physics, really. I mean, it's just a matter of this trigger has enough mass, and when dropped from that height, has enough mass and momentum to move far enough rearward to discharge the weapon. And so that brings me to my next point. Again, kudos to Omaha Outdoors for doing that video. I think they exposed a problem. My bigger concern, though, isn't necessarily the problem itself. It's that I would think a company like SIG would have taken those concerns a little bit more seriously. And the fact that they were able to reproduce the discharge, the unintentional discharge, so many times and so consistently, that there's just no way that I can comprehend that SIG did any kind of testing at all to rule it out before just throwing this letter out there and being like, hey, don't worry about it. We know the test is good. They don't drop. It's not specified in the drop test that they drop it on the back of the slide. And that reason is because it's very hard to get a gun to not go off when it's dropped on the slide. In this test is hitting the slide, but it's also in a lot of those videos that when it's going off, the initial impact is on this beaver tail. So much so that when they did the X5, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a second, they actually ended up breaking this beaver tail off eventually. But that's the one that didn't go off, and they dropped it repeatedly trying to get it to discharge. And ultimately that helped them determine that it's the weight and mass of this trigger that allows it to have enough momentum to go rearward far enough to discharge. So if you have a flatty trigger, or you have the X5, or you have an Apex flatty, or whatever the case is, if it's a lighter trigger than this, you shouldn't have this issue. This should not be an issue. However, my understanding is they were able to get it to go off, but you can definitely hit that video down below and watch it for yourself. But yeah, basically that's the fix. And so we'll see on the 14th what SIG says the fix is. If everybody's going to get a new trigger, what that's going to look like. I think it's going to be a little bit of a mess regardless. If you do have a P320 with the thumb safety, if that safety is engaged, you shouldn't have any issues. Again, it's because the physical trigger is moving rearward and firing the weapon. If you have a safety that prevents that trigger from moving rearward, and therefore the weapon should not discharge. Obviously, don't ever do these kind of tests at home. This is something that you need to leave to a professional that has the equipment in the safety area in order to do that. Again, final thoughts on this are SIG, you maybe should have done a little bit better at making sure it wasn't an issue. Again, kudos to Omaha Outdoors for doing the test and putting the video out there and letting people know what was going on. If you have a P320, I don't think this means get rid of it. It's still a good gun, and you've got to drop it on a very specific angle for that to happen. That's the way that I understand it anyway. So again, if you have one, I don't think this means run out and sell it. If you were thinking about buying one, I don't think this means don't. You might want to hold off a week and see what they say on Monday, and if it's a trigger replacement, maybe wait for some of the fixed guns to get into your local gun shop and get one of those so you don't have to fool with mailing it off and then waiting for it to come back. If you have any other questions, go ahead and drop me a comment down below. I'll be glad to answer it the best I can. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. Subscribe. We've got tons of more videos coming in the future. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching. Again, this is Jay, and y'all have a great day.